Many times before, I am aware. Quiet! Why do you always do this when I want to talk? Cerberus, don't you dare. Many times before, I am aware of how often I repeat this. Don't you dare stop chasing the cat. Hello, my name's Kelly and you're watching The Global Bookworm. As I've said many times before, many times before, I am aware of how often I say this actually, it's been really difficult for me to film while I'm on the road. Right now I'm in the outback and I have plenty of time and privacy to film, but finding the right place. The last video I filmed was inside, but before I filmed it I had to spend half an hour going around killing flies. Now I'm outside, and I did in fact film this once before where the view was much nicer, but the wind just ruined the video, so I've had to start again. And just, I don't know, there's always something. Mosquitoes, flies, ants. The ants here keep biting me, but so far so good. So we're gonna go for this and hope that I can film at last my wrap up for 2014. Well, more like my best and worst for 2014. I know it's a bit late, but I'm better late than never. So I read 51 books last year, although that is counting the sort of 4 or 5 graphic novels as individuals, which is kind of cheating, I think. A graphic novel shouldn't count as a full book, but whatever. 51 last year. I had hoped to read 60, but I'm not too disappointed in myself because I still think that's good going. This is going to be basically, first I'll do my 5 worst books and then I'll do my 5 best books. To be a worst book, it's just a book that I did not enjoy. If you enjoyed any of the books on my worst list, I'm happy for you. Please don't be offended, but I'm not going to mince my words because a couple of them at least I feel quite scathing towards. And for my list of the best books, they don't have to be of any great literary quality, although some of them I think are genuinely just wonderful. They just have to be books that I really enjoyed. So that is what you can expect from this video, and so that you know the pool that I'm choosing from, I'm going to show you everything I read last year in about 25 seconds. So here you go. So there you have it, some pretty good books to choose from, I'm sure you will agree. Starting off, we're going to go in ascending order, so the very worst book is going to be number 1, and we're going to go from number 5, which I have as Meant to Be by Lauren Morrill. This is a book about Julia, who is a straight-A student from America who goes on a school trip to London with various classmates that she is quite judgmental towards because they're not like her. The problem I had with this book is that it's based entirely on stereotypes. Julia is a buttoned-up, prissy stereotype. The boy that she supposedly hates but eventually sees another side to, who is the class clown, is just another stereotype. I mean, the author did throw in a bit of backstory and family trauma for him towards the end that just did nothing for me. It felt really crowbarred and pointless, and Julia seems an otherwise sensible girl, even though I found her annoying, and yet she believes in this meant to be thing, her MTB, which she has fixed in her mind as this boy called Max Bixford from back home, who turns out to be a complete jackass. So, again, don't be offended, I just did not like that book. Number 4, I have Attack on Titan, which is a manga series, and it's horror in the truest sense of the word. It's well illustrated, it's a bestseller in Japan, and I think probably in America as well, but like, it's so bleak. I need some hope. It's about, I think it's set slightly in the future, or maybe it's a lot in the future. I don't know, it's hard to tell because humanity has been decimated by these giant titans who are man-eating, and it's graphic to that extent, by the way. And there's a boy called Eren who he and his friends are determined to finally get rid of the Titans, and I read the first 3 volumes of this, and I guess I'm just a naive reader because I want some hope, and I just don't understand why they're fighting. I would just top myself rather than live in this world that they're currently living in, because there is not 1 ounce of light to be seen in 3 volumes, which is why I'm not going to read any more. There is something interesting about Eren and his contribution to the plot. However, from what I've read, I think they could have made more of it, so I won't be reading any more of that. Number 3, I read 50 Shades of Grey last year by E.L. James. Oh, by the way, Attack on Titan is by Hajime Isayama. Number 3, 50 Shades of Grey, E.L. James. We all know this one. It's an erotica that somehow leapt to fame and prominence, and God knows why. I read it because I would like to be able to say that I've read it before I diss it, and I will actually say it wasn't quite as bad as I was thinking it was going to be. It is juvenile. The lead character, Anastasia Steele, is so naive and just I was a late bloomer myself, but she's just a child in a woman's body, I swear to God, and she's led into the world of BDSM by the suave, sophisticated, totally insane Mr. Grey. So I am gonna watch the film, by the way. How are they gonna make this into a mainstream film? I'm curious about that one. Next up, we have number 2, Degrees of Wrong by Anna Scarlett. This is about Dr. Elise Morgan, who is working on finding a cure for a disease which has hit humanity hard. In the beginning of the book, she's in like the jungle in some third world before it gets ravaged by an attack. And she quickly goes from that carnage to an undersea battleship captained by the totally dishy Captain Nikolai Marek, and basically finding the cure for this incredible disease becomes more of a part-time gig while she just deals with her feelings for this dishy captain. It was bad fan fiction. I like fan fiction. This was bad fan fiction. And lastly, number 1, we have Existence by Abby Glines, and this was easily the worst book I read last year. Thing is, over 2,000 people, I think, on Goodreads, have given it an overall rating of about 4 stars. And I don't understand. I'm genuinely perplexed by it, because I don't understand. If you liked this book, tell me why. I don't understand. I thought it was so bad. It's about a girl called Pagan Moore. Well, we'll get back to the names in a minute. Pagan Moore can see souls, and one day she sees a new soul, and that soul is Death, who just happens, of course, to be in the body of a dreamy teenage boy. And his name is Dank Walker. Let that seep in. Let the dankness seep into you. Dank Walker. I feel like this whole book was an insult to the reader. It was basically a book that was like, oh, let's titillate some prepubescents, and I felt insulted. I realised as a non-prepubescent maybe I wasn't the right audience for it, but I remember being one, and I still knew what made a good book and what made a pile of crap. I told you I wasn't going to mince my words. I did not like that book. Maybe her other books are good. Maybe that was an early one. I don't know. I don't care. I'm trying to wipe it from my memory. Good timing. My camera cut out just as I was about to move on to the good stuff, which is my favourite books from last year. And this is actually quite easy to choose, especially number 1. That was easy to choose, but we'll get to that in a minute. First, we have number 5, which is the Starcrossed Trilogy by Josephine Angelini. I actually read the first book, Starcrossed, in 2013, and then books 2 and 3, which were Dreamless and Goddess, I read last year, and it's just cemented Josephine Angelini in my mind as an author to watch. I think she's incredibly gifted. She juggles very complicated plot lines and lots of characters, at least in the Starcross trilogy she did, and I didn't get too confused. There were a few times I had to pause and just figure out where I was in the plot, but not very often, and that's a real skill when it's something that complicated. Because that trilogy did expand outwards exponentially, and she wrapped it up. She delivered a finite and good, satisfying ending. The Starcross trilogy is about reincarnations basically living in the modern age on Earth, and it mixes various mythologies, primarily Greek mythology, and all the reincarnations basically are divided into groups, and the groups are cursed in such a way that they cannot bear to be alongside members of other groups. It makes them just instantly want to kill each other. It's a curse. And there is a girl called Helen, guess who she's a reincarnation of, who is first she's determined to kill the new boy at her school, and then eventually feelings develop, although not eventually. It's not insta love, but it's insta something. However, they have some pretty major obstacles, a couple of which were a bit annoying, but overall great trilogy, and I recommend it wholeheartedly. Number 4, Seraphina by Rachel Hartman. This is about Seraphina, who is half dragon, half human, and she is a musician. It's kind of set in a medieval-ish fantasy realm. It's very vivid. The description of music and the way that Seraphina feels about music and her gift for music is very well done. I like it when something that intangible is portrayed in a way that I can really grab onto. I think that's a gift. And she's basically living in a world where dragons and humans have an uneasy truce with each other. However, no one knows that there is such a thing as a half dragon, half human yet. And will they find out in the course of this book? That's what the book's kind of about, among other things. Number 2 is The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. Oh, these were a real just treat for the year. I read 3 of the books in the series, Cinder, Scarlet and Cress. I don't know what I was doing with my fingers there, but I couldn't. Cinder, Scarlet and Cress I read this year. No, last year. I'm talking about last year. And they're so good. I'm so looking forward to winter coming out this year. It's basically fairy tale retellings, but so twisted out of shape that they're just so unique in my mind. Cinder, for example, is a cyborg mechanic living in New Beijing in a futuristic world. It's wonderful. I think I might be in love with Marissa Meyer's brain. She's so amazing. So amazing. Next we have number 2, which is Ignite Me by Tahereh Mafi. I may have said Lunar Chronicles was number 2, but it was in fact number 3. Number 2 is Ignite Me by Tahereh Mafi, and this is on here because of the effect it had on me while I was reading it. I paused in the reading. I was reading it lying in bed. I paused just so that I could clutch the book to my chest and just sort of scrunch my body up and squeal. I was so excited. There were scenes, there were extended scenes of wonderfulness with Warner, whom I love and wish was real, because I just think that would make the world a happier place. It's about a girl called Juliet who can kill with a touch, so she's kind of like Rogue in X-Men, but we forgive it that because it's so good. Shatter Me trilogy is about her and a few other people who have powers, but Shatter Me, the first book, is mostly about her, and we find her in the first few chapters in isolation in prison, where she's been put because she accidentally hurt an innocent with her powers, and she's shy and tormented with guilt. And one of the things that Shatter Me is famous for in the booktube community is The narration, it's kind of stream of consciousness, first person narration from Juliet's perspective, and because she's so shy and reticent, she actually crosses out a lot of her thoughts as she thinks them, and those cross-outs are included in the book. So it's an interesting thing to read, and interesting to notice how it dissipates throughout the trilogy as she grows in confidence and comes into her own, really. Next, finally, number 1, The Assassin's Curse by Cassandra Rose Clarke. This is here because it was such a big surprise and such a welcome return to real old-fashioned adventure stories. It was so good, such a treat to read. It's about a girl called Anana. I'm not quite sure if that's the right pronunciation. I can't see any other way to read it. Anana is a pirate, and she's the daughter of a high-ranking pirate who's going to be married off to another high-ranking pirate's son. Is he a son, or is he a pirate, or I think he might be a merchant's son. I'm not sure, but either way, she doesn't want the marriage and she runs away from it in the very beginning, crosses paths with an assassin who's been sent to hunt her down for the slight upon this betrothed son's family, and she sort of fights him off. Something happens and she ends up being bound to him, like cursed to be bound to him and he to her, until they can break the curse. It's a really interesting dynamic, and she is gutsy and amazing. I really would like to meet her and have an adventure with her because she'd see me right. She'd definitely take care of me. She's amazing. The second book in this duology was called The Pirate's Wish. So yeah, book 1 is Assassin's Curse, book 2 is The Pirate's Wish, and The Pirate's Wish was not as good as Assassin's Curse, but it rounded off the story mostly. I still wanted to read more, and overall I just really enjoyed it, and it was an easy pick for my favourite book of 2014. That is it for this video. It's starting to get dark. I hope at some point I can direct the camera in the other direction so you can see the sunset behind me, but the wind is blowing from that direct direction right now, so no can do. Typical, just as I was winding down, I had a last minute battery change. All I was going to say, guys, is if you have any favourite books from 2014 you'd like to let me know about, please put them in the comments below, and link any videos you may have on the subject, because I'm sure you filmed yours in a more timely fashion than I. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!